Welcome to Search for Signs. My name is Gary Willing. If this information interests you, please press the like and subscribe button and press the bell for notifications.
Well, I hope you're doing well today. It is May the 28th, and it's looking like it's going to be a good day today, so I hope it's going to be a good day for you there. I have a couple questions I want to talk about in this video, but if you have a question about Maitreya, the Masters of Wisdom, please feel free to post that question as a comment in one of my videos, but it's always best to post it in the most recent video so then I can see it a lot easier and I won't miss that you actually asked me a question. You can also email me directly at searchforsigns@mail.com. And as always, please refrain from asking me my opinion about what somebody else is saying, and that would be great. Now, first question I want to get into comes from Peter Miller. Do the Masters of Wisdom endorse UN Agenda 21 and 2030 depopulation schemes? Well, Peter, I am going to quote my good buddy Thomas Lynch. Of course not. Now, I wasn't familiar with either of those two, and I went and Googled it. The UN Agenda 21 was 300 and something pages long, and I didn't read it line for line. But from what I've read and skimmed through, I didn't see any forcible depopulation scheme written in there. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Now, the 2030 depopulation or whatever it is, two things about this question, Peter. The first one is any forcible depopulation scheme, theory, conspiracy, or whatever like this, these masters would not be behind, advocate, or even forcibly do themselves, because that would be an infringement upon our free will. Two, the UN has always gotten bad press, but it's been really bad over the past few decades because of, and this is just coming from my own personal experience, from who I hear it from, are mainly gun advocates. And they're deathly afraid and paranoid that the United Nations is trying to take over the world, which the United Nations is not trying to take over the world. The UN, from the Master's point of view, is the future and the hope for humanity. Not in the form of which it is today, because right now the Security Council governs everything, and one nation can veto some of the best legislation that goes through there, and they don't have a lot of real voice and real power over disputes and anything like that. So, but eventually the United Nations will be looked to for the guiding light of the future of humanity, really, and that nations will. That's how they'll communicate with one another better. That's how they'll support one another better. If there's any kind of disputes between two nations, they will be governed that way. Illegal arms sales will be stopped by the United Nations, those kind of things. Also, having to do with the United Nations, the masters will recommend that an agency be set up in the United Nations that actually is where the principle of sharing will take place, where governments around the world, countries around the world will give of their excesses and put it in a common pool, and then other countries can pull from that, and vice versa and so forth. And that's how the principle of sharing is going to take place in a very oversimplified explanation of it. And then there will be a master, probably in the beginning of it, but it will either be a master or a very advanced disciple. More than likely, it's going to be a master in the beginning that oversees the principle of sharing in this agency in the United Nations, because these masters don't sleep, and so they'll outlast everybody in the office. They don't even have to take bathroom breaks. And they have all the joy and love in their heart, and they don't see time the way that we see time. So they'll be working at it day and night, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and be just as happy as they were if they were golfing on their favorite golf course. But they'll be working moment to moment, trying to make sure that the principle of sharing is working, really. The other thing about the depopulation, the masters do see that the world is overpopulated. Cities are overpopulated, right? Well, the cities are overpopulated because there's more opportunities in the cities than in rural areas, right? Well, as the world changes and there's more justice and people's needs are met, which is in the UN Charter, by the way, the Declaration of Human Rights is what it was initially called in the UN, where everybody has food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, and education as a right, no matter what their age is. In old age, if they're an orphan, if they were born in in the United States, or they were born in some of the poorest countries in the world, they would have as a right those, those things: food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, and education, as a right. Now, when people feel that there's more justice in the world, we're living in a much more peaceful world and those kind of things, well, cities will naturally depopulate. People will go into more of the rural areas because they won't have to worry about working in these cities, or in the, having to move into the slums of the cities and so forth like that. The cities will be under the guide of certain masters, will start to beautify our cities and so forth. And cities will be looked more as energetic centers that people can go to and interchange with other people, and they'll get rejuvenated, revitalized by going into the cities, and they won't just be going there to work and live in these miserable lives. Now, also, our means of travel, it's already happening now, but our means of travel will be a lot easier, more comfortable, so people won't have to live in the cities, and they can commute from hundreds of miles away and get there within a few minutes and so forth, and it's free and clean and all that kind of stuff. So the cities will naturally depopulate that way. The world will naturally start to depopulate, and I do have to use that word again, naturally, not forced on by the United Nations, not forced on by any agency, not forced on by these masters, or Maitreya himself are not going to force anybody to, and that kind of thing. But when people start to see that, for one, okay, it kind of goes back to the video I said in a couple of videos ago about the family, and how people will start to take a more serious, sane look at parenting. Is this what I want to do? This is a child. This is a soul in incarnation that I'll be taking care of for the rest of my life and their life and so forth. Is this something that I want to do? And we'll take a more serious look at it. And so a lot of people who probably shouldn't be having children because they're not ready won't have children, and that will help to bring down the population in its own way. The other thing is, in these developed worlds, people have, a lot of children because they want to be taken care of in old age, because there's no means of taking care of the governments, in the world, there is no principle of sharing. So, they need somebody to take care of them in old age, if they get sick, that kind of thing, when they're really too old to work or move around. That's why they have so many children. Well, when people realize that their needs will be met and they trust that, they will stop having as many children in order to take care of them in old age. So the population of the world will naturally start to kind of go down on its own, not forced on it by anybody, if that makes any sense. So do need to be clear on that, okay? But there are a lot of conspiracy theories all over the world about depopulation this and depopulation that, and whether it's true or not or whatever, but I just know the masters aren't behind any of that stuff. So anyway, I hope that answers your question, Peter, and thank you so much for asking it. Now, the next question comes from John Mosley. Gary, I would like to know why Maitreya is always portrayed as a man. Surely this is still a representation of the age of Pisces and not the age of Aquarius. I would have thought that the age of Aquarius, spiritual masters would be adopting a balanced path, and we would see a balance of men and women here to guide us. I also struggle with the idea that politicians Lincoln, FDR, and JFK are masters. I believe there are more worthy people like Blavatsky, Gurdjieff, Steiner, and Manly P. Hall. I welcome your thoughts. Well, John, thank you for asking those questions. Benjamin Creme was asked that question a lot, and I do jokingly say this, but it was usually asked by a woman. So you find yourself in good company, John, and for you to ask that question. But like I said, most of the time, it would be coming from a woman. Like, why aren't there any female masters? Maitreya can appear however he wants to appear. I've seen Maitreya several times as a woman. Others have seen him as women and so forth. It just depends on how he wants to teach the person who he's, seeing at that time. Now, Maitreya looks how he looks as a man, but that's because these masters at this moment in time, John, take on male bodies for an energetic reason and not for a sexist reason. And it has to do with the fact that the masculine body or the male body is better at certain things and not good at other things, or not as good as the female body is at doing other things. Does that make sense? But according to the masters, the time is so critical right now that they need to anchor all the spiritual energy they can muster. And the masculine body or the male body is better at doing that than the female body. The female, like I said, the female body is better at doing other things. And in time, when it's not so crucial for them to do that, more and more masters will start to incarnate as women. The first female master will be the master who was the Madonna. And then, according to Benjamin Creme, she'll come into incarnation within a few hundred years. And then after her, more and more people. So just as you said, there will be a balance between female and male masters. So Maitreya will look how he looks all throughout this age. So he'll be a male for the next 2,500 years or so. These other masters, as they incarnate, can act, look however they look or be a female or not eventually. Right now, they're choosing to be male on this planet because that's what they need to do for a purpose, for a spiritual purpose. Now, in terms of the way that these masters look, like I have on nearly all my videos, I have those pictures of, Maitreya's in the top left. The one next to him is a drawing of the Master Moria. Then there's a drawing of Jesus, a photograph of Sai Baba, a drawing of the Master DK, and then the bottom right is a drawing of the Master Kudhumi. So 4 out of the 6 of these images are drawings. They might not even look, these masters might not look anything like that. Jesus might not look anything like the way that we think that Jesus looks. Maitreya apparently doesn't look like that either because nobody can recognize him on TV, but that's how he looked when he was in Nairobi, Kenya. So really, out of these 6 masters, these images of these masters, the only one that really looks the way he looked is Sai Baba, because that was actually a photograph of him. But women will eventually, I said, women will have more of a prominent role in the future amongst humanity and so forth, and even today, the other thing, before I answer the question, or before I answer the question about Lincoln and these other politicians, is Benjamin Creme's master had a wonderful insight on a biblical passage. And it had to do with the miracle of Jesus turning water into wine. He said that Jesus never turned water into wine as a miracle. That didn't happen. What it was, and I don't know why they use this as a representation, but whoever wrote that into the Bible was writing it as a symbol for Jesus being a feminist. He and John the Baptist both were a member of a tiny little occult group called the Essenes. And if you're ever interested in what they teach, there's actually a wonderful book that was taken from the Dead Sea Scrolls called The Essene, The Gospel of Truth. And it's about Jesus, some of Jesus' teachings that aren't in the Bible. It's a wonderful book talking about law of cause and effect, the fact that you should fast and all that kind of thing. But the Essenes were a masculine order, and Jesus and John the Baptist both thought that they should allow women. So that symbol of Jesus turning water into wine at the wedding was actually a representation of Jesus wanting women to be being allowed to be Essenes. Hopefully that helps that question. Now, in terms of Lincoln, FDR, and JFK, they're not masters at the moment. Out of all that list of people that you listed, JFK, Lincoln, FDR, Blavatsky, Gurdjieff, Steiner, and Manly P. Hall, the only one that could be a master right now really is Blavatsky, because Blavatsky was a 4th degree initiate, very advanced when she was alive today, or alive, 100 or so years ago, or whatever it was. Actually, over 100 years now, probably. And reincarnated as a boy in St. Petersburg in the mid-'80s, and could very well be a master now, based on how evolved she was when she came back into incarnation. Lincoln is in incarnation right now, too, as a 4th degree initiate at the same level that Blavatsky was when she was Blavatsky. And according to Benjamin Creme's master, is working behind the scenes in Washington, D.C. as a mid-level diplomat. FDR and JFK were very advanced for U.S. presidents, but they're not masters. Getting to Blavatsky real quick, if you don't know who Blavatsky is, I would definitely look into reading about her, because if it wasn't for Blavatsky, we would not be talking about the masters today. She was the first person to bring the idea of the masters of wisdom to the public eye. And as with all great disciples, Jesus, Muhammad, the Buddha even, Krishna, Blavatsky, the more advanced they are, the more pure their teaching is, the more slander and crap is thrown their way. And history will judge Blavatsky much differently than people think of her today, for sure. But we really owe her a great debt, because Maitreya would not be on TV. We would not even be having the talk about the idea that we could be living in a peaceful world, realistically, without the work of what Blavatsky did. So anyway, she is very worthy to be a master. But, masters aren't, people don't become masters because they're worthy. They become masters because they control their own nature, their physical nature, their emotional nature, their mental nature. And they purify themselves that way and go through what are called the initiations in order to become a master. So people like JFK were very advanced for their time and very advanced for even today. He was a good-looking guy. Women loved him, and he loved women too. But it doesn't mean that he wasn't. It's not taking away his spiritual, level. It's just that, he's a good-looking guy, and Marilyn Monroe is a very nice-looking woman. So I'm kidding. No, but I'm saying. But they're not. But eventually they'll be masters. All right. Hope this helps. Now, next question, or not next question. Now we're going to read Benjamin Creme's master's article, "The Reception of Maitreya." All right. Maitreya knows that when he steps forward into the world arena, a mixed reception will be forthcoming from humanity. There are many who look forward to that moment with joyful expectation, who will see it as the beginning of the new time which awaits the sons of men. There are others, however, understanding little of the meaning and process of his advent, who will look askance and doubt his credentials, fearfully aware of scriptural warnings, which they all too readily misinterpret. Others, too, will simply watch from the sidelines, awaiting a lead from those they hold in some esteem. Thus will humanity range themselves on one side or the other, those who welcome the teacher with open arms, eager to follow his precepts and advice, and those who see him as the embodiment of evil and all they distrust. Thus will the sword of cleavage do its work, revealing those who stand for freedom and justice, for practical goodwill and love, revealing also those whose suspicion and fear, prejudice and hate prevent their recognition of the truth of Maitreya's message of compassion and love. Thus will it be, and thus will men be tested as guardians of their future. When the initial shock of Maitreya's presentation calms, people will see that within much which to them is mysterious and new, much remains logical and practical, self-evident and true. Ancient truths, reuttered, will echo in their minds as long-remembered certainties, upholding their faith in life. The aspiration lying at the heart of human evolution will assert its beneficent power and awaken men to the opportunity to serve as never before, to find a new hope and purpose, and to create the outer forms of the new civilization. Thus will it be. Look forward to this time which is near at hand. Maitreya stands on the threshold of his emergence, ready to do battle with separation and greed. Rally to his call for justice and freedom, reconciliation and peace, and place your all at the service of the race. This is a time like none other. This is a time which will never be repeated. Look deeply into your hearts and make your choice. A future bathed in light and love, or a denial of your destiny. Maitreya knows the time is ripe for change. He knows humanity is ready for the test. He stands ready to emerge and begin his mission. Remember to take action and help SOP save our planet. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you again in future videos.